What's up, everybody? Welcome back in day 2 of Alec Baldwin's trial. The lawyer arguments start to heat up. They start to get very annoyed with each other, so it seems. And I'm wondering what the jury thinks, how the jury is looking at all this. And that's why I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about it. Then Alec Baldwin walks out at one point while the prosecutor is accusing him of being a liar. Now, it wasn't in front of the jury. We'll break down how important that may be. Of course, we'll recap and react to all the witness testimony in less than an hour today to make sure you get it all in. If you weren't able to watch live, if you were, you'll get your questions answered. Make sure you hit that like button. Let's get into it. So we started with the same witness that we ended with yesterday, Ms. Poppell, and we started with her cross-examination. Basically, he got into some details about firearms and ammunition, talking about two categories, what you put in this category, what you put in that. I love a good demonstrative aid. He uses that chart behind him. Mid, I'd say it was mid. It wasn't like flawless. It wasn't amazingly smooth, but maybe he's going to continue to build on it with other witnesses. I've seen lawyers do this before. I've done it only to a small extent with my own witnesses. I'm trying to think. I had another lawyer do it with my witnesses on cross-examination, and it did not go well for him with some of the expert witnesses. But it is good if you have a similar demonstrative that you use through witnesses, that you build on with their witnesses, with your witnesses. You show the consistencies, the inconsistencies, and you prove your point at the end. So I love a good demonstrative aid, as you guys know. He did this. And here's the other thing, okay? And you may notice if you watch this, and he even said it as he was going, my handwriting's terrible. Almost illegible. Both my kids, same, and I've been on them like, you got to write neat, you got to write neat. They look at me and they say, you have terrible handwriting, Dad. And they're right, but they need to be better, right? The next generation needs to be better. Well, his handwriting's not great either. And as he's questioning, as he's filling it out, it kind of gets worse. And then if it's hard to read, it really becomes almost a distraction. So you got to be careful when you use demonstratives, and you got to try to use them right, and you got to practice. As juvenile as it may sound, I don't care if you're $2,000 an hour or $20 an hour. If you're presenting in front of people, you got to practice. You got to make sure it's smooth. And it's really, really important when it comes to demonstrative aids, that they make sense, that they're easy to read and easy to understand. Okay. So they argue about whether the firearm was destroyed or broken. They talk about searching Kinney's property, and there was live ammo there. And then, we have more speaking objections, more approaching, more objections, more fodder, more sidebar. And it gets just annoying to watch, even from my opinion, on how often they're having to walk up there. And the lawyer ends up eventually showing it all over his face, which we're going to play. But I do want to talk about, one of their points on cross is definitely pointing the finger at Seth Kinney, which I think is interesting. But one of their points on cross is similar to Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, that you can't always tell by looking at or shaking a dummy round to tell the difference between that and a live round. Okay? So if that's the case, then Alec Baldwin could have been acting reasonably and still had this tragic accident happen. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to say this was an accident. Are you really going to convict Alec Baldwin of homicide for this accident, for something he never could have prevented? He never could have known about the, rounds being live, because he never would have thought they were there. He shook them. He looked at them, whatever. You can't tell the difference. And he gets out some of that with this witness.
On a movie set, right?
Yes.
And the one type of ammunition that occurs on movie sets is blanks, and those are the ones that just go poof, right?
Correct.
Okay, and I'm just showing you 812 that's in evidence, right? And those have a crimped top, right?
Yes.
Okay, as opposed to dummy rounds, right? I'm showing you 811 that's in evidence, right? Which look like real bullets, right?
Correct.
And there are different types of dummy rounds, as I think you said on direct. But you can't tell necessarily that a dummy round is a dummy round just by looking at it.
Not always, no.
Some dummy rounds have holes in them, right?
Yes.
Others have their primers removed.
Yes.
Some of them do not have holes in the side or their primers removed.
Correct.
Some of them don't make a noise when they're shaken, called Denex rounds.
Yes.
And some dummy rounds look exactly like live rounds, correct?
Yes.
And those look exactly like live ammunition, fair?
Yes.
And those type of exact replica dummy rounds were on the set of Rust, right?
Yes.
And those were Seth Kenny's dummy rounds, right?
Yes.
And in terms of identifying dummy rounds by shaking them, right, which is something you talked about on direct, some of them are louder than others, right?
Yes.
Some of them have 1 BB, or 2 BBs in them, or 3 BBs in them, right?
Yes.
Sometimes if you shake a bullet, you can hear the powder, or because of oxidation, you can hear things inside of a bullet when you shake it, right?
Yes.
And depending on the setting of something would impact the person's ability to hear it. Isn't that fair?
Yes.
So, right, if I shook a dummy round right now in a courtroom in front of a microphone, right, it would probably be, you would be able to hear it. Would you agree?
Yes.
But if people are all moving around in a movie set, you don't know that everybody would be able to hear it. Isn't that fair?
Not everyone, no.
And some dummy rounds don't shake at all. Isn't that also true?
Yes.
I think it's a great line of questioning, right? And it's very similar to the I almost said the Karen Reed, Hannah Gutierrez Reed trial. Triple B, I honestly think we could see a lot of this, as Alec Baldwin has shown. He has a hard time keeping emotions under control while in the courtroom. He can't be that in-your-face type of guy he likes to be. So I've got some thoughts. I want to save them until we actually play that part. But I have some real thoughts. Some of you may not agree with, but we'll see. He was leading the whole way, so it's cross-examination. He's allowed to lead because he's the defense attorney crossing a state witness. There's that word right again. I guess all lawyers use it. A lot of them do. But I feel like this guy's crutch is more, that's fair, right? That's fair, right? That's fair, right? And again, every lawyer does. I do a right a lot. I do okay to start each sentence. Like, you did this, okay? And you did that, okay? And you did this, okay? So I have to watch myself with that crutch. But once you start get going and cross, usually lawyers hit their crutches. Kevin, they tell the jurors not to do independent research. In this case, watching movies with firearms could be research for how actors typically handle firearms. Absolutely. And they can't do it. They shouldn't do it. And this brings up a good point to me, because at the end of the day, what is Alec Baldwin's duty? That is the ultimate question in this case to me. I say, common sense tells me, well, you should check the gun. Well, you shouldn't point the gun at anybody. You definitely shouldn't pull the trigger while pointing the gun at anybody. That's what common sense tells me. But this case is going to be a test for me, because I want to hear what the experts say. If the experts really say, if they get movie and acting experts that say the actors, and I'll tell you, I've had some actors reach out to me and tell me, we have absolutely been instructed to never open the gun, check it, touch it, because we could screw it up. That the Brandon Lee situation actually made actors less likely to check and confirm their own guns. So from my opinion and what I think of common sense, I'm checking at the door. I want to hear what the experts say. I want to hear how it's explained to us, which experts are more credible, because at the end of the day, his duty is all that matters. If he didn't have a duty to check that weapon and he was acting and doing what he said and following Helena Hutchins' direction, it's got to be not guilty. But if he has a duty to either not point the firearm, not pull the trigger, not load it, or not go forward without checking it and be that last line of defense, checking it, then he's guilty. To me, that's what it boils down to. It may not be the same for every juror or every person in the chat, but that's kind of how I'm looking at it at this point. And then they get more into, again, pointing the finger at Seth Kenny. We'll listen to a little bit of this.
Rounds were actually removed from a bandolier that was located inside of the prop truck.
Defense A26, right?
Yes.
And it has the exact number as the picture you showed the jury, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, the real picture of the ammunition that comes out of Seth Kenny's box is this one, A27, right?
Yes.
And I saw you counting.
I just wanted to make sure the number of rounds.
Fair enough. No, I think that's a good way to that's how I figured about it. That's the right one, though, right?
Yes.
And there's something important about this picture, isn't there?
Yes.
Doesn't that Seth Kenny round look exactly like the live round?
Under a camera flash, I suppose it could.
So she's qualifying, saying, well, sure, but that's because of the flash of the camera. But he has a good follow-up question.
Well, I don't know about suppose it could. I mean, we'll look at the showcasing, Exhibit 28. And we'll go back. 827. We can go back. States 28. Don't you think they look an awful lot alike?
They look similar, yes, but I can still see differences.
Well, I mean, you're a trained investigator, right?
I'm trained crime scene tech, yes.
Even more than an investigator or crime scene tech, right?
Correct.
You have your Nikon 700 flash in your camera, right?
Yes.
You have the opportunity to take this ammunition back to the precinct, lay it out, and photograph it, right?
Yes.
You have no reason to think anybody on the set of Rust was able to do that, do you?
No.
They focus a lot today on how it was a big deal to figure out how live ammo got on the set. They're pointing the finger at Seth Kenney, but we also find out a lot about Hannah Gutierrez-Reed today, who is testifying tomorrow. We'll see if she pleads the fifth. We'll see if she testifies. I can't wait to break that down. I probably won't be able to break it down until Saturday because I'm going to that concert tomorrow night, but we will definitely be breaking it down. So I'm going to play some of these objections and arguments. Not all of them. There were too many to play today, but I do want you to get the vibe and the feel, if you didn't watch the trial today, what it was like, how annoying it was for everybody watching, and let's start to try to feel what the jury's thinking and feeling about this.
Set, I think 215. You're going to be better at determining these reports than me.
Yes.
Okay. And he brought you, again, he also gave you live ammunition with nickel primers, but they weren't Starlight Brass, right?
Yes.
Okay. So he just seems to have, he just missed sort of on what you were looking for, right?
Yes.
Because you were.
Objection to the former question. She doesn't know what Seth Kenney's motives are.
No, I don't. I don't.
I mean, look at his face. Okay. Throughout this whole thing, look at his face. She's like, objection. She doesn't know what Seth Kenney's motives are. No, dude. No. That's not what you're supposed to do. It's frustrating. Okay. Foundation, outside the scope of her knowledge, lay a predicate. Those are the objections. And she is I'll just tell you right now, so that you don't think I am saying she sucks or she's a bad lawyer. I actually think she's a good lawyer. And that makes it even worse and even more annoying because I think she knows exactly what she's doing. And it is an unfair advantage that is not supposed to be there for the lawyer that is willing to push the lines further than the other lawyer is willing to do. And frankly, usually it's the defense lawyer that's pushing the lines, right? I mean, look at this guy's face multiple times as she makes these speaking objections. And he's like, what he's doing right now. Okay. I don't know how important it is or effective it is, but he's trying to say stuff like, okay, you check all these boxes and you would have known exactly who brought it in, but you just missed what you were looking for, right? Totally normal, perfect question. But she makes an objection that really is unfounded. And again, she loses most of these. Ms. Wilkins says breaking up his rhythm, but honestly, you're really not supposed to do that just to break up rhythm. That's not a proper reason for an objection.
What you were looking for, right?
Yes.
Objection to the former question. She doesn't know what Seth Kenney's motives are.
No, I don't. I don't.
He's
Overruled.
Everybody's like, what are you talking about?
I mean, you know that if Seth Kenney provided the live ammunition to the set, that's worse for Seth Kenney, right?
It's worse for whoever provided it. Yes.
I agree. So, but as members of law enforcement, you all know that the person.
I don't know why she can't just agree with that, right? Just say, yes, of course it's worse for him. She basically said that, but like wouldn't answer his question. Yes. I don't like that, because I thought she was fine. I thought she did fine as a witness, but certain things, when you really try to stretch for your side, sometimes it's a little.
Who provided that would have a motive to not be found. True.
Yes.
Obviously, right? Who is Kenney? Did you find his willingness to overhelp law enforcement odd? Yes, I did. And the defense is for sure going to point that out, that, he was so guilty. That's why he was trying to help him point the finger at somebody else. But the state's going to say, we investigated him. He was cooperative. We searched. We did everything with him and didn't find any, criminal activity. Sihazu. maybe you went through this already. Sorry if I missed it, but is there any valid reference to Brandon Lee case that can help Baldwin? No, I don't think anything there is going to help him, but I could be wrong. We'll see how they use it. Troublemaker Baker. Baldwin was rushed to return from lunch. He walked to Spyro before leaving the courtroom. A friend who's there reports that he returned from the restroom. An attorney handed him a drink. He thanked her and they went back in. I get it. I get it. And I promise you I will be giving my opinion on this one once we get there in the day. Baldwin could have prevented it by not pointing a real weapon at another person. Yes, it was an accident, but it is still your responsibility. And again, I'm not an expert on how all this stuff works in Hollywood. So if they bring those experts, I'll listen. If they don't, then we got to go on common sense. And to me, that's not good for Baldwin. The prosecutor really bothers me and I'm unbiased. I mean, I feel like I'm unbiased too. And I think she does a really good job at certain points, but she is so frustrating at other times. Today did not go well for the defense, Lisa Marie thinks. Okay, here we go. And by the way, people are saying put it on 2 times speed. It's on more 1.25 speed, but we're only going to listen to 1 or 2 minute clips here and there.
Yes.
Well, what do you mean when you say that you searched the entirety of the property?
I mean, if a box is opened and it is clear that there's no ammunition in it, meaning if I open a box and it's all clothing and I look at the bottom of the box and it's all clothing, then we're not going to dump the box out on the floor and continue to shake it until rounds that aren't in there fall out.
But okay, sure. Were there any boxes like that?
There were a multitude of boxes.
Got it. So, are you telling this jury that you're on your oath that you searched every single box in this room? That's just all I want to know.
Not me personally. Our team reasonably searched the warehouse.
Okay, and I think we're getting closer to when you say reasonably.
So on direct, I think she did say she searched every box and he gets her with it again later. But here she kind of does waffle a little bit, not as strong that they searched every single box.
Searched. What do you mean by that? And I think we're getting closer to when you say reasonably searched. What do you mean by that?
I mean, how would you approach searching this kind of area?
Well, I can tell.
So that's never a great thing to do when you're the law enforcement person, you're the crime scene tech. You're supposed to know how to do this and be trained on how to do this. This guy's a defense lawyer. He's not asking you how to cross-examine a witness, right? So I don't think that's a great answer from her either. Again, how important is this stuff?
Tell you that law enforcement, I know from the movies. Okay, I'll move on.
He moves on. And again, I might have pressed a little bit more because I would have been like, so as we sit here, you're asking me how to do this? Does that infer you don't know how to reasonably search this? Like I would have turned it around on her because she shouldn't be asking me how to search a warehouse that she's doing with this guy's liberty on the line. Like he could be going to jail for this.
Well, why don't you tell me, what's a grid search?
A grid search is usually conducted outside where you would reasonably set up in a way that you could grid an area and then search each section on that grid.
Okay, and well, why don't you tell me what would have been, if you wanted to be certain, the best way to search this room if you had unlimited resources in time?
I believe that when we searched this room, we divided the room in order for it to be searched.
Divided it how?
Meaning myself took one section, Sergeant Zook took another section, Detective Hancock took another section.
Are you certain of that, or are you best estimate that that's what your memory tells you?
I do not recall exactly how the room was searched.
Okay, and then let's say you open up a box with ammunition. How would you search an individual box?
It would depend on the box.
So tell me.
If we open a box and it's all 38s, we're not looking for 38s at that time, we're looking for 45s.
Okay. And so if you opened up a box and it was commingled rounds, how would you do it?
We would have to go through those rounds individually.
Right, and there were boxes like that here, right?
There were a few, yes.
So they talk about the search. The defense points out maybe it wasn't the best search, and it was so much later that wasn't even relevant. He obviously could have hidden things. He could have destroyed things. He could have changed things. They also talk about how there were tools that they took pictures of, but they never took those tools. They never, investigated them. They don't know what those tools are for. She's not an expert on what those tools are for. And we know at least some of the argument in Hannah Gutierrez Reed's case is that you could turn a live round into a dummy round, and people do that sometimes, things like that. A lot of you guys didn't like this witness, which I thought was interesting. John said, this witness and Carrie seemed so argumentative the entire day. It made everyone, counsel and judge, exhausted by the end of the day. Long day. I knew you witnessed this, biased or not. What the heck? So I didn't feel like she was necessarily argumentative. Difficult, yes. She was a little frustratingly difficult about how she just wouldn't answer things that seemed like they should be easy to answer. She would say she doesn't recall something even after having her recollection refreshed. And so that type of stuff is frustrating when they're like, no, if you show me my prior statement, that won't refresh my recollection. It's like, what? How would that not? You're not even going to let me try? And that's coming later. We're going to listen to that in a little bit. All right, a little bit more of the exchange where he's trying to impeach her with some stuff that she said on direct.
Every single box just 10 minutes ago in front of this jury, right? You found every live round, right?
I don't recall the exact words that I stated.
Well, you certainly said that you searched every single box just 10 minutes ago in front of this jury, right?
I believe that a reasonable search was conducted of the warehouse.
An investigator, I understand you were prepped before you testified today, correct?
I spoke with the prosecution before I testified yesterday.
Okay. And the jury heard something about pre-trial interviews where you're interviewed and the defense can be there to watch you be interviewed, right?
Yes,
But every time you talk to the prosecutors, defense is not there, correct?
correct,
In fact, the vast majority of times you speak to the prosecutors, the defense is not there, correct?
correct.
In fact, you and I had never met before today, or yesterday, I guess, correct?
Yes,
So you just said, when you originally said that you search every box, okay, that itself is not accurate, correct?
correct.
Okay.
She gave him that. He kind of painted her into a corner, right? And he's like, so when you said you searched every box before, that's actually not accurate, right? And she said correct. It's not great, right? It's not great for her.
So now what you're saying is that you did a reasonable search, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And the other thing that the search warrant asked you to take was the cameras and the camera equipment, the surveillance footage from PDQ, right?
I don't recall that.
She doesn't even recall ever looking for the surveillance footage at Kinney's place, even though she could have, and it was in the warrant. And again, lots of things were in the warrant. She could have taken, they could have investigated, and they didn't. And he's just trying to point out it wasn't a great search, wasn't a great investigation. And then he starts to get a little bit snarky with her about how they just want to make sure they get Alec Baldwin. And that was everybody's intent and focus at the time.
Solid.
I do not have any physical evidence to show where the light rounds originated from.
And I was asking you questions earlier about how come the search happened at night, right?
Yes,
Do you remember?
I don't recall.
Okay. Why Detective Connor stood outside?
I don't recall.
Isn't the truth that you were just trying to get this over with so that the prosecutors could focus on Alec Baldwin?
No,
Didn't you want to get this over with so you could just focus on Alec Baldwin?
You personally believe Alec Baldwin committed no crime. Isn't that the truth?
no,
Your Honor, please, can we approach?
So that is an appropriate and timely objection. He should not ask that question. He should not be allowed to ask that question. But if I trusted my crime scene tech and she was sitting up there and she's fighting for me, if I'm the state here, that's pretty clear, I would let her answer that. He just opened the door. Does she think Alec Baldwin committed a crime? Now, if he's going to impeach her and say no, guess what I can do on redirect? Okay, at the time you made that original statement, did you know X, Y, and Z? You didn't. So at the time you didn't think he committed a crime. What about now? Do you think he committed a crime? Like, why would you not want a cop to answer that question? I would have not have objected to that as the state. I would have been like, go ahead, crime scene tech. If he's going to impeach you, let him impeach you. Let's talk about what you think today as you sit there on the stand. All right, well, let's do a little bit more here.
Don't do that. I'm going to strike that question.
The judge is like, don't do that. I'm striking that.
Okay. I'm going to strike the question. You're going to disregard it. Okay. And the answer.
There is zero evidence in this case that Alec Baldwin brought a live round onto set, correct?
correct.
There is zero evidence in this case that Alec Baldwin loaded that live round into that gun, right?
Correct.
And after this, and you turn to the next chapter of this case, is when the order came from you all, meaning you, the prosecutors, Detective Hancock, to order the testing on the firearm, right?
I'm sorry, can you
Sure.
repeat that?
Wasn't a good question. As this case moved forward, after what we just discussed, you, Detective Hancock, the prosecutors, made the request to the FBI to order the accidental discharge test, right?
I don't recall when that request was made exactly.
Well, forget exactly when it was made. Do you have any general recollection?
I don't.
Okay. Are you testifying that you don't know whether it was after the PDQ search?
I don't recall.
And at that time, when that test was ordered, you knew that Mr. Baldwin had told you that he had just pulled the hammer of the gun and not the trigger, correct?
I don't recall.
Okay.
He's trying to set up that they were so focused on Baldwin. They wanted to make sure they could prove Baldwin did this. That's what he's trying to set up.
Refresh your recollection. Speaking of the fire, you did assist in the taking of the firearm withdrawal. You were involved in the requests coming from the team, right? I'm referring to you, the prosecutors, Detective Hancock, right? You understand when I say team, what I mean?
Yes.
Okay. You were involved in the request from the team to the FBI about what tests to order throughout this case. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And these were very much group decisions that you made of what you would test, fair?
Yes.
And everywhere in this case that you went, Detective Hancock went, right?
Yes.
So when you were at the church, the day that it happened, Detective Hancock was there, right?
Yes.
And then, when you were at the truck search, she was there, right?
Yes.
In the precinct with Seth Kennedy, she was there, right?
Yes.
At the PDQ search, she was there, right?
Yes.
And every time something happened in this case, you all would meet with the prosecutors to keep them updated, correct?
Occasionally, yes.
Or would you say occasionally? Investigate problem. What do you mean by occasionally?
I mean that I was not always in direct contact with them about every single thing that would occur.
I'm going to approach and show the witness. She has a copy.
Well, she doesn't know.
What you're looking at, I don't know what line you're looking at, you told me I have a copy, I'm assuming it's the previous transcript.
It is.
Okay, so here's another part where Morrissey just is so frustrated and exhausted with this incompetent lawyering. That's how she seems when she talks, right? So let's listen. You can kind of hear it in the background, and I'll tell you what she says as we listen. Again, this is the type of stuff I would just be like, seriously?
She has a copy.
Well, she doesn't know.
I don't know what page you're looking at. I don't know what line you're looking at.
A copy, I'm assuming it's the previous transcript.
It is. Again,
Page
it's
and line, please.
the body worn camera, 10/21/21.
Page and line, please.
I got to be honest. I may have stopped the trial right there and been like, Judge, we need to have a sidebar. I don't work for Miss Morrissey. I will introduce the document and tell her the page and line at my pace. I don't need her to rush me. I don't need her to say, page and line, please. Page and line, please. Page and line, please. It's like, yo, I'm not your associate. Relax. Relax. This was frustrating to me. Let's listen to it again. And maybe I'm being overly dramatic from like scars and flashbacks to miserable lawyers that I've tried cases with and against in the past.
Previous transcript.
It is. Again,
Page
it's
and line, please.
the body worn camera, 10/21/21.
Page and line, please.
He's literally introducing the document, like making sure everybody's on the same page. Body worn camera on this date. She interrupts him to say page and line again. Look at his face.
The body worn camera, 10/21/21.
Page and line, please.
Page 3, line 1.
And he does look at the jury too. So let me tell you. So if I had a trial against her, I would do what the defense did and try to set it up before the trial. He tried to do it. They tried to do it right. It's so frustrating that the judge isn't keeping her in line. This is not how you act. It's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. I say early in my career, still happens now. The very last trial I did, there was a very, very seasoned top defense trial lawyer at a big law firm in Tampa that tried the case against me. And he tried to do stuff like this over and over again. Not exactly like this. He wasn't annoying like this. I actually really like his personality. And I think he's a good lawyer, but he would try to bully once in a while. Like in jury selection, he would under his breath say, if you keep going on this, I'm going to get up. And I said, make your objection if you've got one. You just got to realize the judge is there. They do not tell you what to do. But again, you don't want to be a crybaby to the judge. You don't want to be whining to the judge the whole trial. You don't want to stop a million times in your cross-examination, which he said, if I'm in the flow of my cross-examination and she keeps objecting and we have to keep walking up to the bench, that throws me off. So somebody said he should never play poker, Dalen. I think he's doing it on purpose, letting the jury know he's annoyed. So I've also had a case when I was a prosecutor, the defense attorney was so miserable like this. And the jury was giving me eyes like, we get it. He's miserable. And it was a quick guilty verdict. So sometimes the jury sees it. I think this case is going to come down to the evidence and not the which lawyer may be more annoying. But, and again, I think she's really, really good. We're going to show some clips where she does a really, really good job. But this stuff is unbearable for me to watch.
Same objection, Your Honor.
What is it?
Ms. Poppell is not in this transcript.
Well, he's what are you doing? Asking her to refresh her memory?
She was there. I'm asking if it refreshes her recollection.
All right. Overruled.
And once again, after all that, she still loses. Overruled. Because he's refreshing her recollection. You can refresh, like in law school, they used to tell us, you can refresh a witness's recollection with a pizza box if it helps them remember what it is you're asking. And people are asking which defense firm. So it was somewhat negative what I said. I actually really, really like him a lot. I love trying the case. I learned from him trying the case. And he was, awesome throughout the trial, even though it was really tough. And when he was cross-examining witnesses, I was sweating a little bit. So it sounded like I was speaking negatively of him. I was not. I would actually use this guy as a lawyer myself. So I don't want to throw anything else out there that may give away who he is. All right, so you can absolutely refresh recollection, even if it was not her making the statement you're showing her.
Does that refresh your recollection about what Mr. Baldwin told you at the scene?
Not particularly.
Okay. Would it be helpful if you saw the video from the lapel camera of you and Mr. Baldwin at the scene and listen to it? Would that be helpful?
No.
That wouldn't be helpful to you, investigator?
Once again, if you watch the video of what this guy is saying, would that help? No. It's like, wait, what? If I literally showed you on video what he said, you don't think that would help?
I'm not denying that these statements were made, but I do not recall all of the information that was being stated at that time.
I understand that, but you're here to do your best, right?
Yes.
And you want to be fair to Mr. Baldwin, right?
Yes.
So you don't know that if I show you the video of you at the scene, it won't refresh your recollection?
Again, that's a frustrated look on his face that he has to go up again in the middle of cross. I mean, I've seen lawyers badger witnesses. I would not consider this badgering. I think she's a difficult witness. I don't think he's badgering. In fact, I think he could get away with going a little harder at her. Morrissey ran all over Spiro today. I think it's Spiro, not Spiro. I always want to say Spiro, the Greek in me. How can the defense attorneys misconstrue the judge's ruling on Baldwin's admissions versus expert testimony? We're going to get there when we get to the hearing. Yellow pill. For me, Baldwin's own words in the interrogation and interviews undermine, I'm just an actor defense, declaring he's an expert with firearms. So that is big, and we're gonna see more about that today. Why is the judge allowing Morrissey to act like this? We'd have to ask the judge because I don't get it. I don't get it. Okay, after the sidebar, she agrees to look at the video. The next thing they do is, they're fighting about something, and he literally seems like he does not even want to deal with it. The way he looks at her, she talks to him, he doesn't answer. Just when you get into these situations, you look to the judge, you ask the judge to tell the prosecutor to talk to you, not me. It's like, judge, tell her to stop talking to me. We don't talk to each other during trial. We talk to you, we talk to the jury, we talk to the witness. She shouldn't be telling me what to do or asking me questions because he is getting really frustrated. All right, there's a little bit more of this we're going to play. We don't need to go overboard on it. Look at his face.
We need to approach. May we approach?
Yeah, look at his face.
Hang on.
He asked her for a document. She won't give it to him. He's annoyed. She's looking at something. She says we need to approach. Look at his face.
We need to approach. May we approach?
Yes.
question. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay. And then this is why I played this one. Because I only picked a couple of these. Okay. So, and some people are saying, it's really interesting to me. People are saying he's really difficult to follow and it feels like he doesn't land responses well. The struggle is real. So I think that's at least partially because of all these sidebars and objections and, talking down to him. I really think that has something to do with that. So after this sidebar, after she interrupts, after she stops it, after we're up there for minutes, what does he do? How does he make sure the jury knows? The jury knows she just lost. She's being annoying. She's doing these interruptions. How does he make the jury know without saying it? Here's how.
Sorry for the interruption. I'm going to ask the court reporter to read back the exact same question.
Sorry for the interruption that she caused. He didn't say that. And that question she objected to and didn't want me to be able to ask? Court reporter, read it back exactly the way I asked it. Because it was okay and she lost her objection. That's how you let the jury know without actually coming out and saying it.
Please.
And on April 21st, 2022, which is after the search. Oh, I'm so sorry. And on April 21st, 2022, which is after the search of the prop house, you and the team sent the firearm for testing at the FBI, correct? Yes.
And that was truthful testimony and accurate testimony that you just gave, correct?
Yes.
And at the time that you sent it to the FBI for accidental discharge testing, which I believe you discussed on your direct examination, didn't you?
Yes.
So at the time you did that, you knew that the testing would cause this firearm.
Sorry.
Another one. I mean, this was like time after time after time. And I see people in the chat being like, I don't know, I like him. I don't know, I like her. What's interesting about this is there are some things I really like about each of them and some that I don't. Or with him, it's more, I do think that he's getting a little bit flustered and annoyed, but it also seems like he's making a connection with some of the jurors, or he's just totally dropping the ball and it doesn't have the best social awareness. But he definitely is looking at these jurors like, you guys see what I'm seeing, right?
At the time that this testing was ordered, you knew that the firearm would no longer be in the same physical condition you recovered it in, correct?
Yes.
Let's take a break. Thank you.
So he came back. He asks the same question again as a little indication. I won there. Okay. So then we go to lunch and we have some arguments. The state says the defense keeps saying Baldwin was ashen and so sad and upset. Yet he said to somebody else, we're going to go have a good time and planning a vacation with his family. I think that's a good argument the state made once again. And I think that Baldwin's team absolutely opened the door to this. And let's hear how the judge decides, because this stuff was not going to come in before the defense was asking all those questions of the witness yesterday. Wasn't Baldwin so sad? I mean, you've seen him before. Wasn't he, pale or whatever they said about that? And I want to hear how the judge rules.
It's relevant and it goes both ways.
All right, thank you. The court makes the following ruling. Under 11401, it says it has any tendency to make a fact more or less probable than it would be without the evidence and the factors of consequence in determining the action. It is not only the issue of whether he committed the crime of involuntary manslaughter, it's also a relevant fact. And you all made that fact very important through Officer LaFleur yesterday. So I do find that it's relevant to basically respond to you all talking about how upset Mr. Baldwin was, and certainly that you considered that fact of consequence, and I'm deciding that this rebuttal information is of consequence.
I agree with the judge's ruling.
I also find that its probative value is not substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice and all the other.
So the next argument is they want to get Baldwin's statements about how he's experienced with firearms. He knows how they work. He knows what you should do, what you shouldn't do. He was kind of bragging about it. And there was a previous court ruling, the defense says, that they relied upon and didn't ask these questions in voir dire. They didn't ask these questions on cross-examining the first couple witnesses. And they didn't discuss it in opening statement, and that prejudices them. Now, I think and again, there was a question about whether or not the defense was misconstruing the court's order. If the court really changes her order, and it does seem like the court doesn't believe she's changing her order, but if she is, that's not harmless error. That's a major problem. And I think Morrissey is badgering the entire courtroom, somebody said. And Taria said, people think it's cool she's throwing the lawyer off. It's not cool. And frankly, there have been appeals where the way a prosecutor has acted and disrupted a defendant's right to competent counsel could rise to the level of reversible error. They have asked for her not to do it. And I think if she really disrupts him the entire trial, they may have an appellate argument. It's hard to win on that, but I would guess it's going to be one of their appellate arguments if they lose. And yes, the family vacation, they were stalked by media. Yeah, that's horrible. I mean, I hate to see that happen to anybody, honestly. I hate to see that happen to anybody, but I think the defense really opened the door to this because the judge wasn't going to allow this in the first place. So let's hear how the judge rules on his discussion of firearms and things like that.
You know, this was related to, and I think I say it here where I talk about on page 154, which you left out. But this is to Mr. Nikas, where he's saying that the state Ms. Hutchinson would have died if there were a blank in the gun. That they were asserting that
She's saying specifically what is being kept out is this expert's testimony, not Baldwin's words.
Going beyond live ammunition. And they were talking about that they expected witnesses to testify, in particular, Mr. Carpenter, that that blanks can kill as well, and that he should have known that. That's different from his own admissions of his knowledge. And I'm going to let the following in. I'm going to let page 12.
She's going to allow his own knowledge to come in.
I'm going to let line 13, right in the middle. Sometimes the wadding can come out. If you're closer, you can get a burn. It shows that he does have knowledge of guns.
Hang on, your Honor, just want to use, I see, I'm sorry.
And then on lines 18, 19, and I'm told even with a flash powder, you can cause contusions and you can do a brain bleed. And then
it's never good when your own words come in against you. That's often, as we say, the most damning evidence against you. And what's also interesting about this is he said a lot of stuff. And I think this is indicative that they're going to use a lot of his own statements. And he's pretty verbose and he says a lot of stuff, and he says it in a way that he sounds very convinced himself, and he says it convincingly. Will this come back to bite him? This is only one statement we're hearing so far. I think the jury's going to hear a lot of his statements.
also lines 1 through 5 on page 13.
And Your Honor, I do understand the court's ruling. If I may, just for the court, just to remind you, because I know we're dealing with the transcripts and we had these arguments earlier. So if I may, just to kind of perhaps refresh the court a little bit, part of what the arguments were about as well was the fact that the way that the grand jury presentation had gone, and in that had not been focused on blanks. It was about live ammunition, live rounds, and that was the basis of what the knowledge must be in order for it to meet the elements of the charge.
This is what in the grand jury, Mr. Carpenter was talking about all these duties that Mr. Baldwin should have had, including the knowledge that blanks can kill. He said that he should have had that knowledge. Everybody has that knowledge when they talk about don't point in the gun and things like that. And
so we're getting into his duty, right? If he is saying things like, oh, even blanks can kill, I know that. Well, then it doesn't even matter. If it was live ammunition, he knew you shouldn't point the gun and pull the trigger at somebody. And I think statements like that are going to come out, and maybe he is going to describe and prove his own duty. That's going to do him in. Laura, Peter, if you put the super chats to scroll along the top of the chat, people can reply to them now. It's a really cool feature. Kelsey, see if you can look into that. I don't know how to do that, but that sounds very cool. And you may have to do it like on the actual YouTube back page, not StreamYard. And we can talk to John and try to figure that out, but that would be really cool. That would be really cool.
I did not want to belabor the point that blanks can kill. Okay. But that's different from Mr. Baldwin's own assertions of the knowledge that he had with respect to guns. All right. Next.
Your Honor, same argument from.
So I'm going to jump ahead to, this is the part where Baldwin actually walks out, and let's talk about how bad it was. if anything, but also listen to what Morrissey is actually saying when he walks out, which is why I think there was somewhat of an uproar.
You live a very, very difficult, but ultimately very narrow life. I believe, hang on, let me finish it a little bit. I think we've got like three or four pages, so I think it all kind of goes together. Hang on just a second. So this part, I mean, the part at the bottom of 18, it puts in context the part at the top of 19, and this goes directly to Mr. Baldwin's motivation to lie about pulling the trigger of the gun. I'm 63 years old with 6 kids. I can't rely on luck anymore. He's talking about his career and that he can't rely on luck anymore. This goes exactly to his motivation not to tell the truth.
So there are 2 very easy ways to look at this, okay? And a lot of them have already been in the chat. Why don't you throw in the chat how you feel about this? Do you feel like he was angry and he walked out? Do you feel like he just had to go to the bathroom? I think when he comes in, he has a coffee or some kind of drink. Was he just going to get a coffee and some kind of drink? Okay. Let me know what you think in the chat of Alec Baldwin leaving there and what the reason is. So there are 2 ways. Number 1, absolutely. We sit there all the time. The most annoying thing is because I always drink just out of habit or drinking a coffee or water to keep my mouth from being dry all throughout the trial. Okay. So I constantly have to pee. The court gets annoyed with me half the time, especially like once you break the seal, as they say. It's like, I got to go to the bathroom again, judge. Sorry. Every break, got to go to the bathroom, got to use that bathroom. So maybe he just had to pee. Okay. I get it. But if I'm going to use context clues, I'm going to say maybe he picked this time to pee. And people saying disrespectful, there's no jury in the courtroom. I don't know what the rules are here. If the judge lets them, go to the bathroom, he doesn't have to be here for this. This is just an argument between the lawyers that the judge is going to make a call on. So he's not doing this in front of a jury. But the context clues that I get here are what the prosecutor's saying, but more importantly, his lawyer's reaction. His lawyer looks and he's like, oh, what are you doing? Then he looks to the side to talk to co-counsel who apparently talked to Alec Baldwin before he walked out. And he was still like, oh crap. And then they needed to approach, which I think is kind of interesting. So let's watch it one more time. See if we can pick up on the context clues. So watch Spiro here. He's the most important context clue to me as a lawyer sitting next to my client. I wouldn't do this if I knew my client was just going to the bathroom. No big deal. My face would not look like this.
To Mr. Baldwin's motivation to lie about pulling the trigger of the gun. I'm 63 years old with 6 kids. I can't rely on luck anymore. He's talking about his career and that he can't rely on luck anymore. This goes exactly to his motivation not to tell the truth.
Can we approach briefly?
Sure.
That didn't just look like a bathroom break that, everybody was cool with and everybody kind of knows was going to happen. That's just my guess. I don't know. I got to be honest. People are saying I'm in the way. Okay, hold on. I could see the whole thing from my screen. All right, we'll watch it one more time. Make sure I'm not in the way. All right. Last time here.
Motivation to lie about pulling the trigger of the gun. I'm 63 years old with 6 kids. I can't rely on luck anymore. He's talking about his career and that he can't rely on luck anymore. This goes exactly to his motivation not to tell the truth.
Can we approach briefly?
Sure.
All right. So again, people can determine whether they think that was important or not. I don't think it was the biggest deal in the world. Even if he was mad and he went out, it is what it is. He walked out. He didn't slam anything. He didn't scream at anybody. He didn't make a big disruption. He walked out. Big deal. I'll tell you what, it's not easy to sit in that chair. As a criminal defendant, as a civil plaintiff, as a civil defendant, when lawyers are talking bad about you, as if you're not in the room, it takes a lot. Okay. It really takes a lot. So it kind of is what it is, but I get why people, have seen it both ways. All right, let's listen to the judge's ruling on this part.
But I'm going to let it in because of the lateness. I think this information is that helpful one way or the other, but I'm going to let it in because of the lateness of your redactions.
So she's basically punishing the defense for getting their redactions in late and allowing Baldwin's statements about, I'm 63, I can't rely on luck anymore, I have 6 kids, whatever it may be, that the state's going to try to use as motivation for him to lie about pulling the trigger or not. And to me, that's quite a sanction to the defense, that because they're so late in these redactions, like, we haven't seen a lot of judges hold lawyers' feet to the fire. And this seems like it's a little bit much to me, but I like to have a judge keep a tight courtroom. So I guess I'll roll with it. I'm surprised that she did that, but she's like, I guess I'm just going to let it in. But she also said she did it because she didn't think it was that big of a deal. Okay. After lunch, we get into the discussion. We've been wondering, are they going to talk about the fact that Hannah Gutierrez Reed has been convicted? Are they going to talk about other criminal trials? We know she's testifying tomorrow. How much is the jury going to know about her? Well, we found out here at the end of his cross.
Go out to seek the source of that lethal round, right?
Please rephrase your question as to the word seek.
Sure. After you said what you said and the officer said what he said, is it not the case that you made it a priority to try to find the source of the lethal ammunition, correct?
Our priority was to find the facts of what had happened in this situation.
And one of the steps that you took that we talked about, by searching the truck, by going to Seth Kenny, by getting a PDQ, one of the things you then did was you did seek out and try to find the source of the lethal ammunition, correct?
Yes.
And as you were doing that, you continued to work with Corporal Hancock, right?
Yes.
You would see her and the prosecutors often, right?
I would see Corporal Hancock more often.
And you testified previously about the search for the lethal ammunition at the trial of the armorer, correct?
Yes.
And a question came up at that trial.
So here we go. The trial of the armorer. So the jury knows there was a trial prior to this for the armorer.
Of this issue of, did Seth Kenny really provide the ammunition to Seth or not, right?
Yes, I believe that came up.
Okay. And eventually there was a verdict in that case, right?
Yes.
And a good Samaritan walked into the police station and gave you the lethal ammunition, didn't they?
After the Hannah Gutierrez trial, there was an individual that came to the police station and stated they had ammunition.
So the way the defense frames this, I was like, wow, there was a good Samaritan that brought this in after Hannah's trial? Holy cow, this is a big piece of evidence. That's what I'm thinking while the defense is crossing her. But just wait. Morrissey's waiting in the wings.
And they turned in the ammunition
Yes.
and they gave it to you, right?
Yes.
And they told you that this was the ammunition that ended up with Seth Kenny that killed Miss Hutchins, right?
I do not recall all of their statements.
Who did you tell about that?
During that conversation, my Lieutenant Brian Brandel, was with me, and Detective Hancock was aware of that individual, that he had come to the sheriff's office.
And you never vouchered that and turned it over to the defense, did you?
It was a doc information situation,
I don't know what that means. Can you just explain it to me?
meaning that I was instructed by my lieutenant to create a doc info report on it.
And I mean, what does that mean?
These were documenting information that this individual came and gave this ammunition to us.
Okay, but you didn't, I mean, he told you it had to do with the rush shooting, correct?
Yes.
And he told you actually that he was a police officer in a neighboring county, right?
I believe he said he was a retired police officer. Yes.
And he told you all had been duped by Seth Kenny, didn't he?
No,
In words and substance, didn't he?
I don't recall that, no.
Okay. And he said to you, I'm willing to fill out.
This, I mean, a cop comes to the police station, says they've been duped. A good Samaritan brings the actual lethal ammunition. I was like, wow, this is a bombshell.
A witness statement, right?
No, I don't recall that.
He told you that the rounds came from a green ammo can, didn't he?
Sustained.
Did you take the rounds that were provided to you? By the way, they were Starline brass nickel primer live, weren't they?
I don't recall.
You don't recall? Really?
That is what I said.
Well, it's information active upon us is going to be my response. But he told you the reason that he was coming in is because he didn't trust law enforcement on this case.
Well, you know what? She's going to object to hearsay, and you're going to say effect on listener.
Okay.
Well, you're going to have to lay your foundation better.
Everybody laughed because they're like, the judge just picked it up by now. What's going to happen?
You
Yeah.
are.
So let me ask this question. How come law enforcement didn't voucher this with the rest of the evidence in the Rust case?
I'm not sure what you mean by the word voucher.
How come you didn't inventory it and put it with all the rest of the evidence in the Rust case?
I was instructed to put this in as a doc information case, which I did, and it is under that case number.
You buried it.
No.
Your lieutenant,
There is a supplemental report on it, and that was placed into evidence.
did you ever turn that over to the defense?
I have not turned over anything to the defense. My information goes through the sheriff's office.
Are you aware of whether the sheriff's office ever informed the defense that the Good Samaritan came in and turned in his ammunition?
I do not know.
When the defense came to view the Starline brass nickel primer live ammunition with you, you didn't show them this, did you?
I did not have an evidence viewing with the defense. That was my coworker.
Your coworker didn't show this to the defense, correct?
I do not know.
Do you have any reason to believe your coworker showed this to the defense, given that it wasn't put in the same inventory as the Rust case?
No.
Did you or anyone from the sheriff's office ever tell the armorer or her lawyers that a Good Samaritan came in after the verdict and gave you this information?
I do not know.
But you do agree. He did tell you that Seth said this was the evidence from the shooting, correct?
I don't recall what he stated, what someone else stated.
And you told him he didn't have to write a witness statement. Law enforcement was going to type up a report on it today, right?
I never stated any such thing without a witness statement.
He offered to provide a written witness statement so that it was clear. Did he not?
I do not recall that happening.
Okay. Did you give him assurances that you would type up a report on it?
I don't recall providing assurances to him.
Did you tell him that you would write up a report on it?
I don't recall doing that either.
You deny it.
So that's basically it. And he obviously thought that was really important because that's what he ended with. But Morrissey smushes this right at the beginning of redirect. Like literally, as long as I thought this was important, it was gone.
Witnesses in this case.
No, I did not.
You didn't interview Mr. Baldwin?
No,
You didn't interview Ms. Guitterez?
no.
Mr. Spiro was asking you about the Good Samaritan who arrived at the sheriff's department after the Guitterez trial. Can you tell the members of the jury when the Guitterez trial was?
I don't recall exactly. I believe it was back in April.
Would you take end of February, beginning of March?
Yes, that sounds more accurate.
Okay. Do you recall the Good Samaritan's name?
I do not.
So before we get into the Good Samaritan's name, badgered witness and a couple other people asked, was that supposed to come in? Everybody seemed perfectly fine with it. Nobody objected. Nobody seemed surprised. And now both sides have talked about it. So I think everybody was fine with the Hannah stuff coming in. Vera May, it was kind of similar, kind of different. I don't think there were any criminal charges in the Brandon Lee case. Bodie, I think what she's trying to say is he lied to say he didn't pull the trigger because he had to make sure he wasn't going to get in trouble for this. He didn't want to leave it up to luck, I think, but I don't know. We'll see how they use it.
Did you recognize it if I said it to you?
Yes.
Troy Teskey.
Yes, that was his name.
Are you aware that Troy Teskey is a close friend of Hannah Guitterez Reed's father?
No, I did not know that.
Yikes. And again, that's not in evidence because she said she didn't know that. And that's just a question for the prosecutor, but I'm picking up what she's putting down.
Are you aware that Troy Teskey had his own motivations for wanting to place blame on Seth Kinney to help Hannah Guitterez?
Objection, leading, objection, irrelevant.
Overruled, overruled.
Please answer.
No, I had no knowledge of that.
It actually, those are improper questions because they're outside. There's no foundation that she would have knowledge of this. So she shouldn't be able to ask her just to say this stuff. That's facts, not in evidence.
Now, to be clear, is Mr. Baldwin charged with involuntary manslaughter for bringing live rounds on the movie set?
No.
Is Mr. Baldwin charged with involuntary manslaughter for loading a live round into the gun?
No.
Has a person already been tried and convicted for those things?
Yes.
That would be Hannah Guitterez.
To try to clarify some points, Starline Brass, is that a brand of ammunition?
Yes, it is.
Is it?
So now she goes through, she basically defends Seth Kinney, says he didn't do it. They go through the evidence against Hannah. And then she mentions an an actor at the end, and she asked if that actor did his own safety checks on his weapons before he used them. And this witness didn't know. But I was like, my guess is we're going to get that information later and see how it applies to Alec Baldwin. All right. We are about to now, I'm going to slow it down a little bit because we're about to get to a very Italian witness. And he is Mr. Pietta. He talks about all the great protocols, how he, manufactures and they test their firearms and they're always safe and they're just the best ever, just no problem. And I'm thinking, well, does he know what they were since it left him to where it got to the movie set? Answer to that was no, but she did ask him this, and I thought this was very good evidence for the prosecution here.
Does your Pietta firearm revolvers get put through that test by ATF?
Absolutely.
And that's to test to make sure it doesn't fire on its own?
No, that test means that we have safety on the gun.
So let me hit these questions real quick because they refer to that. Michelle, was he asking questions he didn't know the answer to? No, I think he did know the answer. And also I think he wanted to ask his question because even if her answer was, I don't know, he wanted to get in that stuff about the Good Samaritan that Morrissey's like, that was Guitterez Reed's dad's buddy who was trying to help Guitterez Reed's dad and trying to hurt Seth Kenney, had his own motivations. It wasn't some Good Samaritan, and it didn't even turn out to be anything important that he turned over. Are there any other legal options available to Spiro/defense team to deal with the prosecutor's behavior? I would just at every sidebar continue to complain about it, put it on the record. This is a problem. She's disrupting. She's not making valid objections, etc. Brooklyn Basement, could the judge's silence lead the jury to believe Morrissey's behavior is typical in a courtroom? She acts like everyone in the room owes her rent money. If the defense doesn't object, the judge isn't usually going to jump in, but during breaks, sometimes the judge would say things like this. I don't know how the jury, that's one of the questions I have for you. One of the overarching questions of this video. How do you guys think a jury looks at this lawyering? Who does it hurt? Who does it help?
Are you familiar with how this particular gun fires?
What that mean?
Well, what does it take to
You need to
make
put,
it
you
shoot?
need to cock the hammer and pull the trigger.
What that mean? You have to cock the hammer and pull the trigger, and that's important. In his very thick, amazing Italian accent that I bet the jury loved. I mean, how could you not love this guy, right? He's got no dog in the fight, except he doesn't want you to say anything bad about his gun, right? But he confirms here for the state, you cannot fire this weapon without pulling the trigger. And they're going to have as many people say that as possible, and that's very important evidence.
Do you know this gun that you have in front of you will fire without a pull of the trigger?
Actually, this gun cannot fire because from what I see, it's missing some parts. So
Okay, I'm talking about when it was first.
This guy, he's like, this gun right now can't fire. It's missing some parts. Hit the like button if you guys haven't already, because we got Mr. Pietta in here.
of course,
Does it fire? Would it fire without a pull of the trigger?
No.
Why not?
because the mechanic, the design of the hammer and the trigger has been designed since Samuel Colt made this gun to work in that way.
And can you explain under what circumstances it will only fire?
Well, when you cock the hammer, the trigger will engage the firing knock position. That is the farthest one, so the last position of the hammer. And if you want to release the hammer, you need to pull the trigger. The trigger is just a sear that locks the hammer in that position. And if you want to do that, you need to pull the trigger.
Okay. Now, is there also a manufacturer's warning about whether or not
So that's just a simple explanation. They get into the hammer and things like that and what could possibly happen, but a very simple explanation from a guy who makes the gun that you can't shoot it without pulling the trigger. To me, that's pretty good evidence for the state, right? And I don't think that that's going to be the last person to say that exact statement. Netwoman, since they finished filming the movie as a tribute to Helena, did they finally get new safety protocols on set? Have fun at Morgan Wallen tomorrow. Thank you. I hope so. I sure hope so. And I would think so, but I don't know the answer. All right. So defense gets up and predictably says, do you know what happened with this weapon from 2017 to 2021? He says no. And I was like, that's pretty good cross because we don't know what condition it was in when it got to Alec Baldwin until Justin Hill, the marketing guy that sells the firearms to from the manufacturer to like stores and stuff, says it was all good in 2021. Never had a complaint about the gun going off. Can't fire it without pulling the trigger. Both witnesses confirm. And this is Justin Hill, just so we could see what he looks like. He was up for about 2 seconds. And then we finished the day. with Corporal Hancock, who's the lead case agent. She basically gave her background experience, started talking about what she did, and we broke kind of in the middle of her testimony. So basically right at an hour, a little longer again, to give this breakdown of the entirety of day 2. The lawyering was the highlight for me. The arguments back and forth, the miserable objections. But I want to know from you guys, and I'm going to go back and read these comments later about what you think about the lawyering, how you think a jury feels about the lawyering. Hit that like button, though. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit that like button. We're just getting rolling on this trial. Make sure you subscribe if you're following the Alec Baldwin trial and hit the reminder bell so you don't miss any of our updates. We're going to be doing daily recaps, daily breakdowns because you guys asked for it. And again, tomorrow night, I'm going to be at Morgan Wallen. If any of you guys are there, come say hi. Going with my wife and some friends. But I am going to do a breakdown of tomorrow on Saturday, and Hannah Guitterez Reed is testifying. Whew. Only 2.2 thousand likes. Let's get those likes up. There's 9,000-ish people in here across Twitter and YouTube. Make sure everybody hits the like button, please. But that's all we've got for tonight. I'm looking forward to continuing this because I knew it was going to be a battle between these lawyers. So until next time, we are officially out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.